jumped. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Project Arrowhead. I'm your host, Jim Sackowitz, joined by the one, the only, Sarah Beer.
Oh, hey.
And I do want to start out the show by saying that today, viewer discretion is advised. Highly advised. We're going to tackle a topic that is very raw to some people. But given things that have happened over the past, I was going to say a couple of weeks, but this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
Hi, Gwen.
hey, Gwen. Like I said, if you're squeamish, not really squeamish, but...
I mean, we're not going to get really into, like, dirty details, but it is an uncomfortable topic.
It's a very uncomfortable topic, but one that needs to be discussed.
Absolutely.
So, before we do that, just a reminder that Project Arrowhead is brought to you by the Lansdowne Pub, the Mohegan Sun's #1 spot for food and entertainment. Lansdowne Pub, located on the upper level. Great food, great atmosphere, and great entertainment. Daily specials and seafood and steak specials on the weekend. So go to the Lansdowne Pub. Once again, located on the upper level of the Mohegan Sun Casino, Uncasville, Connecticut. Look for Chef Randy. He does a great job. And they'll take great care of you. And that's the Lansdowne Pub. We're back. We got to laugh now because, like I said, it's going to be a very controversial show. And, but what the hell? What are we without controversy? So, today, we're going to be discussing the rape culture in America. We have done some research. We have statistics. We have all different kinds of things. Did you look into the how to avoid it?
There is, so the CDC does have certain suggestions on how to avoid it, but also at the same time, they say sexual violence is preventable, but at the same time, I mean, if someone's going to do something, they're going to do it. I feel like, how do you say that to people that are sleeping in their beds and, you know, they're attacked in the middle of the night? Like, oh, they should have put a lock on their door. Like, what if they did? And they were like, some of it is preventable, but not all of it. So I kind of think that's a little silly, but.
Okay. All right. Well, the first thing is, I don't want to say to clear up any controversy, but the first thing I'm going to do is read you several definitions. Now, these are the definitions as outlined by the DOJ, the FBI. Okay, this is what they consider. We didn't make this up. This is what they consider. Okay. First, we'll start with rape. Now, in 2012, the FBI issued a revised definition of rape as penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus or any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. The revised law is gender neutral, meaning anyone can be a victim. We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be just a female. So when carefully examined, the FBI definition does not look like most people's idea of rape. Typically perpetrated by a stranger through force. The FBI definition says nothing about the relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, and it says nothing about force. It does, however, say something about consent, or rather lack of consent. Think about consent as your ability to make a decision about what happens to your body. First day with the new lips. A perpetrator can compel a victim into a penetrative sex act in multiple ways. A, they can ignore verbal resistance, saying no, stop, I don't want to. Okay, common sense. Or overpower physical resistance by holding a person down so they cannot move. A person can penetrate a victim who is incapable of giving consent because he or she is drunk, unconscious, asleep, or mentally or physically incapacitated. Or they can threaten or use physical force or a weapon against the person. Essentially, these methods either ignore or remove the person's ability to make an autonomous decision about what happens to their body. Now, this is the federal, okay? State laws vary on how they define removing or ignoring consent. Perpetrators cannot defend against charges of rape by claiming they were drunk themselves or by saying that it's their wife, they married the victim. Okay. Now, that's the definition of rape. Sexual assault, basically sexual assault and rape are two different things. They're used together quite a bit. It's led to the Me Too movement, and it's very confusing. Now, in contrast to the specific criminal act of rape, the term sexual assault can describe a range of criminal acts that are sexual in nature, from unwanted touching and kissing to rubbing, groping, or forcing the victim to touch the perpetrator in sexual ways. But sexual assault overlaps with rape because the term includes rape. Okay, I hope everybody understands that. It starts as sexual assault, and then once penetration, it goes into rape. Social and behavioral scientists often use the term sexual violence. This term is far more broad than sexual assault. It includes acts that are not codified in a law as criminal, but are harmful and traumatic. Sexual violence includes using false promises, insistent pressure, abusive comments, reputational threats to coerce sex acts. It can encompass non-contact acts like catcalls and whistles, which can make women feel objectified and victimized. It includes non-consensual electronic sharing of explicit images, exposure of genitalia, and just viewing of others naked or during sex. Okay? Now, I know that was two different things right there. You had the sexual assault and then what they're calling sexual violence. Now, using false promises. All right, hey, can you let me borrow $1,000? Sure. Do this and I'll give you $1,000. They do it. And he says, yeah, I was just kidding. I don't have $1,000. Okay? That falls under the sexual violence. Not sexual assault, but it falls under the sexual violence act. Okay. It's confusing as hell. It really is. Now, another one that I guarantee you everybody has done something that would fall under the sexual harassment.
100%.
Even without realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual harassment is it's much broader term than sexual assault. It encompasses 3 categories of impermissible behavior. All right, and here we go with the you do this for me, I'll do this for you. Which, if you've been watching the news, quid pro quo. So, and that's sexual coercion. And it refers to the implicit or explicit attempts to make work conditions contingent upon sexual cooperation. The classic sleep with me or you're fired scenario is a perfect example of sexual coercion. It is the most stereotypical form of sexual harassment, but it's also the rarest. Unless you're Kamala Harris, it doesn't happen. It happened. She did it. It's a known fact. All right. So, unwanted sexual attention can include sexual assault and even rape. If an employer were to forcibly kiss and grope a receptionist without her consent, this is an example of both unwanted sexual attention and sexual assault. And they're both a civil offense and a crime. Most sexual harassment, though, it entails no sexual advance. The third and the most common manifestation is gender harassment. Conduct that disparages people based on gender, but also implies no sexual interest. Gender harassment can include crude sexual terms and images. For example, degrading comments about bodies or sexual activities. Graffiti calling women names and calling men certain names. More often than not, though, it's purely sexist, such as contemptuous remarks about women being ill-suited for leadership or men having no patience in childcare. Such actions constitute sexual harassment because they are sex-based, not because they involve sexuality. Do we all understand that?
Yes.
I'm telling you. Gwen's laughing about the Kamala. Well, Gwen, if you know the story about Kamala Harris, it's sad. It really is sad. All right. Come-ons and put-downs. They are both bad. In lay terms, sexual coercion and unwanted sexual attention are come-ons, whereas gender harassment is a put-down. Still, they are forms of sexual harassment, and they can violate the law, including Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Historically, social attitudes towards all these hostile actions have assumed a continuum of severity. Sexist graffiti and insults are offensive, but no big deal, right? Verbal sexual overtures cannot be as bad as physical ones, and if there was no penetration, it can't have been all that bad, right? No. These assumptions do not hold up to scientific scrutiny, however. For example, researchers at the University of Melbourne analyzed data from 73,877 working women. They found that experiences of gender harassment, sexist discrimination, and the like are more corrosive to work and well-being compared to encounters with unwanted sexual assault and sexual coercion. Now, they've tried to clarify the terms that are now becoming household words. Of course, life is complicated. Abusive, assaulting, or harassing behavior cannot always be neatly divided into one category or another. Sometimes it belongs in more than one. Nevertheless, it's important to use terms in accurate ways to promote the public's understanding. Finally, we need to heed that society is in a period like no other and one we thought we would never see. People are reflecting on and talking about and considering and reconsidering their experiences and their behavior. Definitions, criminal and otherwise, change with social standards. And this time next year, they may be writing a whole new column on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And even trying to find, like, when I was looking up all the statistics for even, obviously, 2020 isn't over yet, but even just trying to get the statistics for 2019 was difficult. So a lot of the statistics are from 2015 is like the most broad, like, full report, but trying to get the statistics on any sort of sexual assault, violence, harassment, rape is so hard because a lot of it goes unreported. So you're not going to get a solid number. with all the definitions and everything that you were talking about, I did have some myths and facts to kind of, a lot of people have like these misunderstandings. And while some of these are going to sound so stupid, there are people that believe these. So bear with me, because some of these are laughable. But again, there are people that believe these. So one myth is that sexual assault is an act of lust and passion that can't be controlled, when that is false. Sexual assault is about power and control and is not motivated by sexual gratification. Another myth is if a victim of sexual assault does not fight back, they must have thought the assault was not that bad or they wanted it. No. Many survivors experience tonic immobility or like a freeze response during an assault where they physically can't move or speak. So
Correct.
that doesn't mean that they wanted it. Another myth is that a lot of victims lie about being raped or give false reports. And if you watched last episode, that was what my beer run was on, is that there is a special place in hell for people that give false reports about rape. But in reality, only about 2 to 8% of rapes are falsely reported. And again, those people can go to hell and ruin the movement. Do I need to move this closer? Okay. Sorry.
Bend it a little more.
Sorry.
No, you.
Rape is actually one of the,
Okay.
I don't know if it's hardest. Yeah, we'll go with hardest. Crimes to prosecute. Only 5 out of 100 are actually prosecuted.
I'll-
And if you think about it, that is scary.
Yeah. Another myth is that a person can't sexually assault their partner or spouse. Nearly 1 in 10 women have experienced rape by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And actually, I think the numbers now are even closer. Another myth is that sexual assaults more often occur in public or outdoors. 55% of rape or sexual assault victims or victimizations occur at or near the victim's home. 12% occur at near or at the home of a friend, relative, or acquaintance. Another myth, and I have no idea how anybody believes this, that rape doesn't happen that often. Must be nice to live in a world where you think that. But it happens so often. One sexual assault occurs every 73 seconds. That's disgusting. So if you think that, please erase that thought from your brain, and then maybe proactively try to think about ways that you can be more aware and crawl out of that rock. Another myth is that people that have been sexually assaulted will be hysterical and crying. Again, everybody responds differently to trauma, so some may laugh, some may cry, some will show no emotions at all. There's no way to determine. You can't base anything off of how someone reacts.
And as an EMT, I can tell you, I can, without a doubt, say that is 100% accurate, because you don't know. Some of them sit there stone-faced. Some of them are just all over the place, and some of them are crying. You'd never, ever know.
Another myth is that men are not victims of sexual violence, and that is absolutely false. 1 in 33 American men have experienced or an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. Another myth is wearing revealing clothing, behaving provocatively, drinking a lot means the victim was asking for it. If you actually believe this,
Remove your head from your ass.
Please. The perpetrator selects the victim. The victim's behavior or clothing choices do not mean that they are consenting to sexual activity. And if you've been following the Me Too movement at all, or just have any brain cells in your head, you should know that. Another myth is if a parent teaches a child to stay away from strangers, they won't get raped. Sadly, I believe 93% of sexual abuse cases are perpetrated by someone that they know. And that is probably the saddest statistic that I've read through all of this. Another myth is being sexually assaulted by someone of the same gender can make a person gay or lesbian. Again, this is laughable. The assault is typically not based on the sexual preference of the victim or the rapist, and therefore does not change the victim's sexual orientation. Another myth is that people with disabilities are at low risk for sexual assault, and actually that is the opposite. Is people with disabilities are victims of sexual assault twice as much as people without disabilities. And, you know, we've heard the stories about the people in, like, the homes that have become magically impregnated because the workers there are abusing them. Like, this isn't just a problem with young girls that are in college and drinking and getting drunk. Like, this is an overall problem across the board. Another myth is that prostitutes can't be raped because they are selling sex. Prostitutes, as any single person in the world, have the right to give and withhold consent to any sexual activity, and therefore can be raped just like anybody else. Another myth is that getting help is expensive for survivors of sexual assault. The fact says that services such as counseling and advocacy are offered for free at low cost by sexual assault providers, and I believe that's true, but
That's true.
I didn't get into, you know, state by state and in all this stuff, but I do have some information about the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline, and there is so many resources out there for people, and I believe that they're all free. I just didn't want to confirm that because I didn't call them myself, but we can talk about that in a little bit.
Now, just think about this. 1 in 5 women have been raped. 1 in 5. I anybody knows me that this is something that really gets my blood boiling. This is the lowest of the low. There's absolutely no excuse for it. And that brings me to the documentary.
Yeah. So this is kind of what spurred this episode, today's show.
Okay, I'm looking at these statistics right here. More than 51.1% of female victims of rape reported being raped by an intimate partner. 40.8% by an acquaintance. For male victims, more than half, 52.4, reported being raped by an acquaintance, and 15.1 by a stranger.
Yep.
Approximately 1 in 21 men, just 4.8%, reported that they were made to penetrate someone else during their lifetime. Most men who were made to penetrate someone else reported that the perpetrator was either an intimate partner, 44.8%, or an acquaintance, 44.7%. An estimated 13% of women and 6% of men have experienced sexual coercion in their lifetime. And 27.2% of women and 11.7% of men have experienced unwanted sexual contact. Most female victims of completed rape, 79.6%, experienced their first rape before the age of 25. 42.2 experienced their first rape before the age of 18.
That's disgusting.
Just let that sink in for a minute. It's... I don't know. All right, go ahead. Talk about the documentary.
So, for those of you, I'm not sure if you've watched it or not, but we watched the documentary Audrey and Daisy, and it's about two females who were. I know Daisy was 14 at the time. I don't remember how old Audrey was at the time. She was in high school for sure.
I think Audrey was 15.
I think so too, but I don't remember for sure. But basically, it tells the story of those two women. Unfortunately, Audrey killed herself a week after her assault happened. She went to a party. She had been drinking. She went with her friend. She kind of was sloppy, so her friend brought her upstairs and tried to lay her down to kind of sober up, but she came back downstairs, and then she was brought upstairs by, I want to say 4 boys. I don't know. I'm saying boys because they are not men. They brought her up. They were drawing with Sharpies all over her, like drawing arrows to like all parts of her body and just saying vulgar things. They took videos of acts and then just left her there. And she woke up.
Well, they penetrated her with her fingers.
Yeah.
And then there was, I don't know if it happened or not, rumored that somebody stuck a Sharpie in her. And supposedly one of them, that's the excuse, he went to see if the Sharpie was in her.
Yeah. So, that's the testimony or whatever he gave after. So she went on Messenger, on Facebook Messenger, and was messaging these people because some of these were her friends. And she was like, I heard there's a video, there's pictures. Are they deleted? Please, don't pass them around. Why would you do this? Why, like, just between the 4 different peoples, why wouldn't you stop this? Why would you let this happen? And people were saying vile and nasty things to her, like she was unconscious this entire time. She had no idea what happened. She just woke up to marker all over her. That's all she remembers. It turns out that the video was passed around, but because it was deleted off of the person's phone, they couldn't, I don't know if it was at that time, they couldn't get it. So, like, the police said, oh yeah, it didn't get passed around, that's just rumors, which kind of bothered me. But anyways, she couldn't deal with it and she ended her life, and she
hung herself in the bathroom.
Yeah. And I can't remember what there was 4 boys that were interviewed, I believe, in this one. And did any of them get in trouble? I don't remember.
In Aubrey's case, they were charged.
Okay, good. So now we're at Daisy, where she was at her house with her friend. They were drinking. They said that they had like a water bottle filled with tequila, and I think something else that they were experimenting with, Red Bull and vodka, I think.
Well, Daisy and her friend they were at home drinking to begin with. Mm-hmm. So they had I think they were drinking beer at home, and Daisy was a freshman. She was only 14 years old.
Yep.
So while they're there drinking, this guy that was supposedly friends with her brother, played on the same team as them, called them and said, hey, what are you doing? We're having a party.
You want to come over?
And they drove over there and picked the girls up and brought them over to the friend's house. And that's when things just went bad.
Yep. So her friend, and I forget the friend's name.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either.
Her friend was taken into another room almost immediately, and she was assaulted by another male. And then Daisy was drinking. They kind of like said, well, if you don't drink this, like that's the bitch drink. You have to prove
Coercion.
yourself. Yeah, there you
There we
go.
go with the coercion.
So she kind of was like, well, I'm not gonna be made fun of. So she drank it also. Mind you, she was already drunk when she was getting there, and she was drinking more. I think she said it was close to 11 shots of how much alcohol she drank just at the house that she
Well,
went
yeah,
to.
because that's what the BGL,
Blood alcohol.
yeah,
Yeah.
VAC came out.
So she had like about 11 shots at the second house, not her own house, and she was already drunk. So another one of the guys took him to his room and raped her, and the other two males were in the room that they originated in. I guess they had opened the door, they had tried to take video or picture because they weren't sure what was going on in there, and then they were kind of figuring out like what they had to do to, leave, like once everything was done. They like shoved her out the window. They brought her back home, but the other friend got back inside and passed out, but they left Daisy outside. Her mom found her outside with her hair frozen to the ground.
Yeah, it was probably
the next morning.
It was probably about 12 degrees, and they basically just threw her in the front yard and left her there to whatever.
Right. And so when her mom brought her in to like get her warmed up and everything like that, she had noticed that parts of her body were red, and that immediately sent a red flag in her brain. And so she brought her to the emergency room where they did a rape kit, et cetera, et cetera. And they found out that she was raped. And because I believe her phone was outside, her brother picked up the phone and went through her text messages and realized that it was his friend that was there, and texted him, hey, what happened? And he wouldn't answer. He showed up at his house, he wasn't there, wasn't answering the door, and he immediately knew that something had happened. And so he called the police and gave them the guy's house that he was at, or that she was at, and they had brought him in. I want to say that the sheriff keeps bragging that, oh, we did this all within 4 hours, like we got him.
Now remember, they were all star athletes.
Yeah.
And that'll come into play.
Yeah. So he's accused of rape, and he actually, in the video, admits to it. Initially, he doesn't name the other boys that are in he doesn't want to rat his friends out, which I can understand at that age. But eventually, the sheriff, through interviewing him, gets him to confess what he did and name the other people that are there. So, obviously, this goes to court. Everything is playing out. But in the meantime, people are like, wasn't the hashtag like justice for Josh or whatever, or like free Joshua or whatever? And people were just like, oh, he didn't do it. She asked for it. She's a skank, blah, 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 blah. Like, God forbid anybody believe a 14-year-old when anything like this happens. It was just sickening seeing the comments, and this poor girl was harassed. She couldn't go in her own town to go eat or anything without people making comments. So it kind of divided a town, but in a way, like, it was more like people were on his side than they were on hers. And I don't think the only person that got charged was the person who assaulted her friend. I think he was the only one that got any.
I don't think any of them got charged.
I think the friend did. The one who admitted to it, and
okay.
Like initially, he was the one that got in trouble. And I think they mentioned like the documentary that the friend feels guilty because she got her justice in a way when Daisy didn't. Not that I think that's justice at all, but. And we talk about the sheriff because they talk about, what was the comment he made about the boys and if they did it, and he was like, did they?
Oh, the woman that was doing the documentary, they went back to talk to the sheriff and said something, and she goes, well, we're talking about the boys in this case because they're the ones that perpetrated the crime. And the sheriff kind of sat back. He goes, "Did they?"
And I wanted to punch him right through my screen.
Now, Daisy's she's a very pretty girl. Blonde hair, cheerleader, the works. After this
Not
happened...
that should matter.
No.
Just putting that out there.
No, you'll see where I'm going.
Yes.
After this happened, she completely changed everything. She got her nose pierced. She cut and dyed her hair black. Basically just completely changed who she was. And that right there, that's a sign that you can't get much clearer of a sign that she needs to talk to somebody. That's, something's going on. And she did. She met another rape survivor. They started this group, and they would go around talking to all different rape survivors. Do you remember what the group was called?
Something Bay.
Yeah, I can't remember.
If you go back to the Project Arrowhead page, I did post the website. So we're going to kind of fast forward. So sadly, August 5th, Daisy ended her life. Now, she was in and out of therapy ever since that this incident happened. She had, Safe Bay, thank you, Gwen. That is the organization that they had. And so August 5th, she ended up ending her life. She had a lot of tragedies. Obviously, in the documentary, you know that her father actually had passed away before. So she'd already had, the whole family was dealing with that, and that's why they had moved to the town that they were in. I want to say it was like Maryville or something. But I personally found her Instagram and was like looking at her, content, and she was a tattoo artist. It was really cool stuff. But you could tell that I think she had lost her little brother. I want to say maybe 2 years ago or a year ago.
Well, was it? It had to be. So it was Aubrey that moved from California to Florida to get away from everything before she killed herself.
Well, I thought she killed herself a week after that happened.
I don't think so. Because remember, she was talking to her dad, and she was wanted to get away from it. Well, we're really getting away from it, and she moved from.
That's the girl that helped.
Okay.
That's the girl that you see. Yeah.
Okay.
So she obviously she was in and out of therapy, and she admits that. She tells her story on her Instagram, and through her words you can tell, but August 5th, that it just wasn't enough for her.
Even though this happened back in, what was it, 2013, 14-ish?
Yeah, at the very latest 2015, because I know the documentary came out in 2016, I believe.
Okay. So even though it happened back then, she was still getting bullied and harassed. And, god-awful things were still being said to her, whether it was online, in the papers, spray-painted. And she moved out of there.
Their house was burnt down. They were harassed.
They still found her and just tormented her after all of this.
So actually, we did not time it this way, but so August 5th, she passed away. The Safe Bay, if you go to safebay.org, they're actually having a virtual vigil for her today at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if that's something that you want to look at, I kind of have a feeling that they'll be going over what Safe Bay is and her impact on it. So if you want to learn more about that, or even just pay your respects, I know it's not anyone that you know personally, but I don't know. If you want to do that, you can do that on safebay.org, and that is at 7 o'clock p.m. today. But I kind of wanted to talk about this ties into the long-term effects that it has on victims. And 94% of women who are raped experience symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder during the 2 weeks following the rape. So that's just like initially. 30% of women report symptoms of PTSD 9 months after rape. 33% of women who are raped contemplate suicide. 13% of women who are raped attempt suicide. And approximately 70% of rape or sexual assault victims experience moderate to severe distress, a larger percentage than any other violent crime. People who are sexually assaulted are more likely to use drugs than the general public. 3.4 times more likely to use marijuana, 6 times more likely to use cocaine, 10 times more likely to use other major drugs. Obviously, this is a coping mechanism. It also affects their relationships with family, friends, coworkers. 38% of victims experience work or school problems, which can include significant problems with a boss, coworker, or peer. 37% experience family or friend problems, including getting into arguments more frequently than before and not being able to trust their family or friends or not feeling as close to them as before the crime. 84% of survivors who were victimized by an intimate partner experience professional or emotional issues, including moderate to severe distress or increased problems at work and school. 79% of survivors who were victimized by a family member or close friend or acquaintance experienced professional or emotional issues, including moderate to severe distress or increased problems at work or school. 67% of survivors who were victimized by a stranger experienced professional or emotional issues, including moderate to severe distress or increased problems at work and school. So there's so many different long-term effects that happen, and there's emotional reactions like guilt, shame, self-blame, embarrassment, fear, distrust, sadness, vulnerability, isolation, lack of control, anger, numbness, confusion, shock, disbelief, denial. Psychological reactions such as anxiety, nightmares, flashbacks, eating disorders, depression, substance use or abuse, phobias, low self-esteem, difficulty concentrating, obviously PTSD, physical reactions, changes in sleeping and eating patterns, increased startle response, concerns about physical safety, physical injury, and concerns about pregnancy or contracting STIs and HIV. The list is endless about all the long-term effects. So you have, for example, Brock Turner. We all know the case of Brock Turner. And he was sentenced to what, 6 months? Whatever. It was a very short sentence.
So it was suspended, though. 6 months.
Didn't he get out
right?
in 3 months?
I think so.
So it was something stupid.
Oh, that's the guy from Duke, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we can talk about that in a second, too. His swim records were great, but don't worry. Just don't worry about the girly rates.
I don't want to ruin this young man's life. I believe that's what the judge said.
Yeah, and that's going to fall into the beer run later. But, yeah, exactly. He didn't serve his full sentence. I want to say he was sentenced to 6 months and got out in 3 for good behavior. But let's say it was a year. Let's just say. So he endures 1 year of jail. And I know he didn't do it. He did it in 3 months. This girl has to live with it for the rest of her life. Did you hear that long list of shit that I just said? That's going to be with her for the rest of her life if she doesn't end up killing herself.
And this gets me too. I've heard people, oh, Jesus, that was 10 years ago. Get over it. You know what? No. Get over it.
Fired up.
Unless you've actually been through it and understand what you are doing to that girl. All right, you are destroying her life for the rest of her life. This will stay with her forever. Any relationship she has, she'll try. But there's always going to be something in the back of her head. She will never, ever be the same again.
Mm-hmm. So, along with the long-term effects, I kind of wanted to give you guys some advice about how you can help someone if you know someone who's struggling with this, and 1 in 5 and 1 in 4 or whatever the statistic is, there's a fat chance you do know someone.
Well, with that being said, I know several people who have been sexually assaulted. And it goes back to what we said earlier, that each of them deal with it in a different way. And that is so absolutely true. Some of them are embarrassed. They don't want their spouse, significant other, they don't want them to know, because they are worried about them thinking that they're trash, that they're no good, they're damaged goods, we can't have a normal relationship. Then there's ones that go fighting. They will they'll make sure everybody knows, and they'll try to bring their rapist down. And then there's some that just clam up. They'll start talking about it and then just stop.
Some don't even talk about it at all.
Yeah. Yep. So it goes back to that everybody reacted in a different way. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way to handle this.
Yep. So, first and foremost, let them know that you believe them. There's a website called Our Resilience that kind of gives some good advice on how to, as a loved one, help them out. So, letting them know you believe them. All too often, disclosure is met by skepticism and outright disbelief. Simply letting a survivor know that you believe them and that you stand behind them is meaningful.
One of the side effects is, even though you believe them, they may just absolutely lash out at you.
100%.
Been there, done that, seen that. So,
Both of us.
Right?
Both of us.
It's the fight or flight. And like Erica says, a lot of women don't come forward because it ruins their life. They're judged, they're harassed, they're looked at differently. And yeah, it's very sad.
It's important to focus on the feelings and reactions of their survivor rather than your own. And I know that is so difficult for people in a me world, but in this situation, you need to kind of set your emotions to the side and be there 100% for them. And with that, allow their survivor to make his or own decisions. That's so important. And again, that's so difficult because it can be very tempting to take over for a while and attempt to help them because you think that you're helping. It's important to remember that because of the rape, the survivor feels a loss of control over their life. So reestablishing that control is so important. Try to defer a survivor's decisions, even if they decide to let you make some decisions. Then at least that was their choice and not yours. If a survivor wants to talk, try to be an open listener. If they prefer not to talk about the assault, then be supportive in other ways, letting them know that you care about him or her and are willing to listen at a later time if they desire, because they may not openly want to talk about it. And if you leave that communication open, eventually they will, or maybe they won't. But leaving that, and again, we know that they've personally, people who have acted differently, and this is completely, a friend of ours was posting racy pictures, I guess, if you will, after she was assaulted, and the comments that people would saying like, oh, you deserved it, again, because the way she was dressing, but that was her trying to take control back of her life.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
And that's her making her own decision, and girl, more power to you. Again, we went over the myths of rape. Educate yourself about that, because there are some dumb myths, and if you believe them, educate yourself and help the survivor by not being dumb, is like essentially how I could say that in the nicest way.
Yeah.
Be ready to listen, be a willing listener, and who acknowledges the feeling of a person and makes a significant positive impact. Sometimes it's very useful to simply be with a person and create a safe silence, like non-judgmental support. Literally just sitting there and listening and just saying, wow.
So, my thing, and this, I mean, it's kind of like the back-asswards country we live in. Mm-hmm. We have to come on and we have to tell people, we have to tell women how not to get raped. How about we tell guys to not do it?
Yeah.
Why do we have to tell the women how to avoid it? And I'm going to get all spun up. Guy I used to work with, he just got arrested for raping his wife. I mean, what the hell? The excuse, he was drunk. It's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
That is not an excuse. Cover your drinks. Don't leave your drinks unattended.
I do that all the time. I'm like, I shouldn't have to, but
You shouldn't have to. You should not have to worry about leaving a drink unattended because some asshole's going to come over and drug your drink.
There are companies making designs that go over your drink just so, like, how crazy is it that people have to make inventions for this because we live in a sick, disgusting world?
Exactly. I mean, like I said, why are we telling women how not to get raped? Shouldn't we be telling the guys to not be dickheads? You know, you got DJ J. Smith, who's out there multiple times raping people, and he's not in jail. Why? I talked to a detective from the London Police Department.
Oh, we naming names.
I'm going to name his name. He asked me about a certain friend's case and then explained to me that the same person who attacked her attacked another girl in New London, and he's working on that case. And it all comes down to the state's attorney not prosecuting this shitbag. Now, this guy's a DJ out in these clubs and everything. He's got access to these girls, and DJ J. Smith is out there raping these girls. Why is he not in jail? Why hasn't somebody taken him out behind the club and just beat the living shit out of him?
Yeah.
And people defend him. They defend him left and right.
And this is exactly the reason why so many people don't come forward, because there's...
Randy got roofied once.
Like, I hope that's not a joke.
No, Randy wouldn't joke around about that,
Okay,
right? He
good.
got roofied once.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that. It's so real. I know somebody that, honestly, they were at I think it was a club or a bar or something, and someone literally just poked them with like a thumbtack or something with a note that said, "You have AIDS or HIV now," or something like that. No, like, even if it's a joke, like, even if they were joking, like, people do that. That's disgusting. Like, oh, just because you have HIV, now you have to go, like, be a jerk and spread it around so that everyone else can be miserable with you. Like, I don't get that mentality. But one other thing to say about the whole, like, how you can be there and everything like that. Now, this statistic was, I want to say, in 2014 or 2015, but rape survivors with advocates were 59% more likely to have police reports taken than survivors without advocates, whose reports were only taken 41% of the time. So I actually think that number would be higher in 2020. But
so do you think that if the police started arresting more of these people, things would change?
Yes and no. I think that if justice is being served the way it should be, more people will be coming forward looking for justice, but I still don't think that that's going to stop a scumbag from doing what they want to do. Do you know what I mean?
Randy was in his 20s. He got roofied at a bar in Providence. Yeah, I don't get it either, Randy. I wish I did.
It makes you so gross as a human being that, like, you can't get someone being yourself, that you have to go through the trouble of drugging them so you can have your way with them. Like, what a cowardly thing to do.
And honestly, I'm not going to mention where I work. There was a girl, and when she walked in, she was fine. And she walked out, and she was talking to me, and she's acting all funny and everything. And I'm like, oh, that hit her quick. And I went in, and I happened to walk around the corner, and I heard the guy. Heard him. And he said, and I quote, "Yeah, I just roofied that bitch." So I called the manager and the owner over. I said, "Look, this is what just happened." We notified the PD because they happen to be standing right there. And they went over to the girl and they were like, "Oh yeah, yep." So they escorted the girl out and they followed the three guys. And I don't know what ended up happening. I saw them. They had them up against the wall. They were searching them. I don't know if they found anything on them or what had happened. And the girl kept coming back. She was so out of it. She had no idea where she was, what was going on. And we're like, "Look, you got to go. Do you have a ride? Are you staying here?" And tribal police finally took her out of there because she was destined to get hurt. So seeing something like that actually happen, it just, I can't tell you what I wanted to do to the guy.
Earlier we had talked about prevention as possible.
I don't know, Randy. Maybe they thought you were cute. Well, Randy,
still not an excuse.
Randy said, "I think it was meant for someone else, or someone just has a sick sense of humor," or they thought Randy was cute.
Still not an excuse.
No, not an excuse at all.
So the CDC did put out some information about how prevention is possible. Again, these are all things that we should be doing in general, I believe, personally. So, but again, that does not mean it's not going to happen. But parents, school staff, and other caring adults can teach skills to prevent sexual violence by helping youth build positive communication skills, including conflict resolution and how to handle emotions in a healthy way. That obviously starts at home. Practice and model healthy, safe dating and intimate relationships in order to teach youth dating and relationship skills.
We have a survivor story. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, or if they want to call in, or...
Yeah, you can read it.
You want me to read it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is from a comment. I have no problem talking about this because I'm now very open about it. I was raped a few days before Christmas in 2006. Jim was the one that drove up from Connecticut. I was living in Mass, and he was there for me. He was the only guy I felt comfortable with. He just hugged me and let me cry. Jim, my then roommate, and my doctor were the only people I told at the time. I was terrified of the guy if I went to the police and being judged or ridiculed, which is another statistic about why people do not report. I just stayed quiet, but I was walking home from the bar. It took me 5 minutes. The guy followed me into my apartment building and raped me on the stairs. For the longest time, I had PTSD and went into myself. I became afraid of my own shadow and closed everyone out. But Jim was the one that pulled me out of that and wouldn't let me shut down no matter how I treated him. Wow. I'm assuming she's talking about you? Okay. Well, that was... Aww.
Yeah, that
makes me happy about you, but like for being there for her, that she had somebody. But I am so sorry that happened to you.
I could have never made it through that. I couldn't have made it through that.
I don't have words. But how and this might sound weird, how sad is it or weird is it or warped is it that you actually can talk about it now? Does that sound weird to say?
No.
I mean that in a way that, like, because of the Me Too movement, people are coming out and they are talking about it, and that makes me so happy. It makes me sad that so many people are coming out and saying is kind of like what I meant by that, to clear that up.
Yeah, I think the Me Too movement was huge, and it got people talking, got the message out a little more. Hasn't stopped anything,
No.
but it's definitely helped the victims. The Me Too, the He Too, all of that.
One other important thing I want to talk to you guys about is the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline. Just so you guys are aware, if you or someone that you know needs help, you can call 800-656-HOPE, which is also 4673, to be connected with trained staff members from the sexual assault service provider in your area. This is all from rain.org, so it's information about the hotline. When you call, you'll be routed to a local RAIN affiliate organization based on the first 6 digits of your phone number. Cell phone callers have the option to enter the zip code of their current location to more accurately locate the nearest sexual assault service provider. So the hotline helps you by including services such as confidential support from a trained staff member, support finding a local health facility that is trained to care for survivors of sexual assault and offers services like sexual assault forensics exams, someone to help you talk through what happened, local resources that can assist you with your next steps toward healing and recovery, referral for long-term support in your area, which we've already talked about. There are so many long-term effects that you will probably need help with, or that can refer to someone that needs help with. Information about the laws in your community and basic information about medical concerns. The National Sexual Assault Hotline is safe, confidential service. When you call the hotline, only the first 6 numbers of the phone number are used to route the call, and your complete number is never stored in the system. Most states do have laws that require local staff to contact authorities in certain situations, like if there's a child or vulnerable adult who is in danger. While almost all callers are connected directly to a staff member or volunteer at a local sexual assault service provider, a handful of providers use an answering service after daytime business hours. This service helps manage the flow of calls. If all staff members are busy, you may choose to leave a phone number with an answering service. In this case, the number will be confidential and will be given directly to the organization's staff member for a callback. If you reach an answering service, you can try calling back after some time has passed, or you can choose to call during regular business hours when more staff members are available. And you can access 24 help online by visiting online.rain.org, and RAIN is with 2 N's.
There's also another number I want to throw out there.
Oh, yep.
1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. And that is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
So the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline is providers who are organizations or agencies dedicated to supporting survivors of sexual assault. The providers who answer calls placed on the hotline are known as RAIN affiliates. To be part of the National Sexual Assault Hotline, affiliates must agree to uphold to RAIN's confidentiality standards, and that means never releasing records or information about the call without the consent of the caller, except when obligated by law. Again, that's when there's a child or a vulnerable adult involved.
Gwen's got the hookup.
Yeah, she does.
Thank you, Gwen.
Only making reports to the police or other agencies when the caller consents, unless obligated by law, which again we just said. Agreed to RAIN's non-discrimination policy. The National Sexual Assault Hotline was the nation's first decentralized hotline connecting those in need with help in their local communities. It's made up of a network of independent sexual assault service providers vetted by RAIN who answer calls to a single nationwide hotline number. Since it was first created in 1994, they have helped more than 3 million people affected by sexual violence. Before the telephone hotline was created, there was no central place where survivors could get help. Local sexual assault services providers were well equipped to handle support services, but the lack of a national hotline meant the issue did not receive much attention as it should. In response, RAIN developed a unique national hotline system to combine all the advantages of a national organization with all the abilities and expertise of local programs. So they have that number. Again, that number is 800-656-HOPE, which is 4673. It's in our comments. They have literally every resource that you can need. They can connect you to, and it's all confidential. Is it free? I don't know. I want to say it's free. It didn't say it. Oh, yes. Yes, it's all free. It's all free.
Mm-hmm.
So those are important numbers to have. The National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline and the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And I believe the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, if you press 1, that's for veterans. I want to believe if you press 1, that's for veterans. And that's a separate line. But yeah. So lots of information in this show today. I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's something that needs to happen, and information like this needs to be out there for people, because earlier we did the myths, and those myths were so dumb and laughable about some of them, but it's sad because some people actually believe them. So we need to, in general, we need to make people comfortable having this conversation. We need to make it a normalized conversation so that people can feel okay about talking about it, and more people can report it, and more justice can be had, if you will. And I commend every single person that tells their story, because that takes courage that I don't think I'll ever know that I could ever say that I'll have. And yeah, Randy, women should never feel bad about telling anyone, and men, like, just as much. I mean, in fact, I don't know what the exact statistic is, but I believe men are less likely to report because of the embarrassment that they're a male that got raped.
Mm-hmm.
What are you laughing at?
The silence.
Oh. I'm sorry, I just talked a lot.
Oh, the people that are watching us on Facebook, they're like, oh, okay. But the people that are listening to us on the radio, they're like, all right, where'd everybody go?
We're here. Just needed a sip of my iced coffee.
Did you see a plane crashed on a house in Groton today?
I saw that.
Yeah, This was really a rough subject to cover. I'm not gonna lie.
Have you ever put like a discretion on a episode or like a show before?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
But sadly, we all know people in our own close circles that this is
Anna and Groton.
all too common. So you have to.
So again, let's just cover some of the ways to protect yourselves. As I stated before, never leave a drink unattended. That one's just common sense. Just be aware of your surroundings. If you have mace, carry mace. But, learn self-defense. That helps a lot of people. And it's simple moves that they don't expect you to fight back. And when you start fighting back, now they know they're in for it. So don't be afraid to learn self-defense. Even if you watch it on YouTube. Anything you do to fight back, like I said, they're not expecting it. Shot to the nose, make it a good shot. Their eyes will water up. It's going to hurt. Kick to the groin. They're not chasing you. So, just be aware of your surroundings. If you go out to a bar or something, try not to go alone.
Yeah, and that's what Gwen was just saying. She always lets someone know where she's going and who she's with. Always. If I'm by myself, I let multiple people know what I'm doing and where I will be. Sarah has been one of them for me before. Yes.
Nice. Yeah, and that's it.
I do the same thing.
It's the buddy system. And again, it sucks that we have to tell people how to not get attacked instead of getting people to not attack. So I just I hope we covered some things today. I hope we made an impact. It was definitely a rough show. But do you know what time it is?
It's going to be a very short one, guys.
Gwen, do you know what time it is?
Gwen knows what time it is.
Gwen knows what time it is. BEERUN, beer run. BEERUN, beer run. All you need is a 10 and a 5, a car and a key and a sober driver. BEERUN, beer run. The beer run with Sarah Beer.
By the way, definitely had a sober driver on Saturday because it was my birthday and I'm smart and I drank and had a sober driver. Always have a sober driver. Drink responsibly. Anyways, this beer run is going to be a little bit short, and we kind of already dived into it because I'm very upset about our court system and judicial whatever laws and BS that protects these scumbags like our DJ Joe Smith and other scumbags who have admitted, like in the documentary, that they have raped, but for whatever reason they don't have the evidence to cough up. Why? If you are admitting to it, I feel like that should be enough to be arrested. But no. Brock Turner was sentenced 6 months. I don't want to ruin his career. Well, I don't give an F about your career. You just raped someone. Think about her life. Why isn't the victim the one being thought about? Why is it we are giving these people second chances when they screwed up royally? I'm not talking about I stole a candy bar. Not that I think that anyone should steal candy bars. It's not a petty crime. This is disgusting and vile acts. And we're just like, slap on the wrist. Why? Why? That's what makes people go out and do these crimes, because they're not getting in trouble for it. We need to, I'm not saying the death sentence. I don't know if I agree with that or not. But I'm saying we need to give these people disgusting punishments for their crimes. 6 months?
Chemical castration.
Chemical castration? No. I just noticed this is zooming in on me and I don't like it. 6 months was a disgusting, and this is just an example of cases all around the U.S. and the world. People are not getting fair sentences for their crime. And yes, he got arrested, but in my mind, 3 months. He was sentenced to 6, served 3.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Randy.
Kesha is another example. Because of, what was it? I don't remember the name. Because it happened an extent, a time.
Statute of limitations.
Thank you. That's what I'm thinking of. Because it happened within, you should be able to report that no matter what. And statistics show that people do not report in the first year. People don't report in the first 5 years, and there's different reasons why. And mostly it's kids. Sadly, it's kids who do not report in the first year and the first 5 years, because those poor kids, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to make of these situations that happen. They should be able to come out 20 years from now when they're old enough to, like, process and figure out what happened to them, and just justice isn't being served. And that is my beer run. I want more justice and harder, heinous punishments for these disgusting acts. That is all.
I feel like we should have the theme song from SVU.
SVU. Dun-dun.
Sexually based crimes are considered extraordinarily heinous.
Yeah.
The men and women of the dedicated.
The men and women of Project Arrowhead.
Yeah.
So that's my beer run, and we already kind of talked about it, but I don't know. You don't have to agree. You can or you don't. But that's my opinion, and that is the beer run.
So, let's talk about a good topic.
Ooh.
Last week, we discussed the fact or fiction story of Billy the Kid.
Yes, we did, and I liked it.
And you had the opportunity to watch Young Guns.
Yes, I did have the opportunity.
Okay, so how close to our topic, to the legend, was the movie?
Oh, it was like dead on. It was like dead on.
Okay. And you still got to watch
I have to watch the second one.
the second one for the continuation of the story.
Yes. So I didn't want to torture Jeff by watching both of them because it was kind of a long movie.
Like, he didn't like the first one?
No, I mean, it's not that he didn't like it, but I also, like, backstory, I was a little under the weather, and by under the weather, I mean hungover AF, and he was taking care of me like such a good boyfriend, and so I asked if we could watch that movie, but, like, I was like, you're being so nice. I'm not going to force you to watch another movie, so you pick a movie. So we watched something else. We did watch A Knight's Tale, which was a nice movie, and The League of Their Own, about the baseball. So they're like all older movies.
Yeah. So we put it out there for the fact or fiction. 90% of the people believe that Pat Garrett did not kill Billy the Kid. And that was indeed him in, was it 1940 something, 1950? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They believe that Brushy Bill Roberts was indeed Billy the Kid.
Yeah. So I definitely, I don't know. I really liked how you were explaining it to me, like kind of going into it with literally no knowledge. I know that makes me sound ignorant, but I liked learning about it, and then I really liked watching the movie afterwards, and I definitely will watch the second one because it was good. What was it? There was another episode we were going over movies, and I watched, was it Dances with Wolves?
Yes.
Yeah, so good suggestions, man. I mean, I don't care if they're older movies. If they're good, they're good. So I liked that. And I'm sure my ignorance probably makes for some golden show footage.
No, not really. I mean, we discussed it, and a lot of people don't even realize that there were wars within the wars
Yeah.
back in the United States. And they called it a Lincoln County War because of how many people were killed.
Yeah.
It focuses on the band of regulators that were deputized. But there were more regulators than that. And
I do want to say, what I find funny is, like, obviously in what you were telling me and in the movie, like, I find it funny that they're like, hold on, a woman's coming out, and they like let the wife out of the house, and everyone just stops. But then they go back to it. Like, okay, well, we have the common decency to let the woman out.
That's the way they were back then.
It's just funny, like, to think that way, because, like, nobody cares now.
And then you saw what happened to McSwain, which he was unarmed, but they let him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
But they got their justice at the end.
Yeah, see that?
Well,
That right, I was going to tell you that right there.
Oh, what?
That was part of the movie. He didn't kill Murphy.
Oh, he didn't?
No, he did not kill Murphy.
Oh, okay.
They got the hell out of there.
So, okay, so my question is, what happened to him in the long run?
Who?
Murphy.
Died of old age.
Stop.
Murphy died of old age.
Well then.
But
Justice was not served, and I'm mad about it.
they didn't... obviously, it wouldn't make for a good movie if they just let Murphy go and die of old age. But yeah, Murphy died of old age.
Well, now I'm mad about it.
Nah. The other thing that it didn't cover was McSwain's wife took over the business, and she ran John Tunstall's store and everything, and ended up finishing off Murphy because she became one of the...
Ooh, I didn't know that
She
part.
became the first most prominent female cattle person in the United States.
So in a way, I guess kind of justice was served.
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time.
But I did see that fact at the end of the movie.
Not at the barrel of a gun, but she put him out of business, and that's what she wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Man, I kind of want to take a trip down to New Mexico and see where all this stuff is.
I found that scene so funny when they were doing like the Native American like ritual, and they got like drugged. I was cracking up.
The peyote?
Yeah, that was great.
Peyote is just basically it's a mushroom. It's a psychedelic mushroom. Yeah, that would pretty much be yeah. He's on the horse backwards. They can't see me. I'm in the spirit world.
And yes. Oh my God. Yes. And then like all of them are looking at them like.
Yeah, that was great.
I was excited that Emilio Estevez was the main character because I'm not gonna lie, as a child watching Mighty Ducks, all of them, I had such a crush on him. In The Breakfast Club, thought I was gonna marry the dude at how old? 8. So I liked it a lot.
I don't know. I thought Molly Ringwald was pretty hot.
Yeah, she was in a lot of stuff too then.
Yeah, so you learned all about the Lincoln County War, the regulators, Murphy, Dolan.
Yeah, we should do more shows where you talk about something and then I go watch a movie.
Well, if there's a movie about it.
Yeah.
You know, most of the fact or fiction, that was the one I came up with where...
Yeah, it was the first one, Randy. Charlie Sheen was in the first one.
Yeah, and then what was the name of the other one? Was it Men at Work, Randy?
Men at Work. Why did
Men at Work, because I think that's the one that has both Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen in it.
I feel like I may have seen that one.
I want to say it's Men at Work. They were like they were like garbage guys. I'm almost positive it's Men at Work. Uh-oh, she's gonna Google it. Yep, Randy said, yep, Men at Work.
Oh no, I wasn't Googling. I was Xing out of the.
Yeah, it's got
stuff.
both Charlie Sheen and What's the movie that's got the three of them in it? Martin Sheen, Charlie Sheen, and Emilio Estevez.
Is there one?
Or it might be Men at Work, too, but no, there's one where all three of them are in it.
Huh.
That was pretty good. I almost want to say something like those Naked Gun movies or something like that. But, yeah, I will try to do another Fact or Fiction, see if there's a movie based on it.
Yeah. Then I'll go home and watch it, and then I'll tell you the next time.
Not all of them are as historically accurate as the Billy the Kid depicted.
Yeah.
And you know what I bought?
What did you buy?
I bought Pat Garrett's book on Billy the Kid.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to borrow that when you're done with it.
I knew that was coming.
Seriously.
Yeah, I'm very interested to read it. You know, the way they wrote stuff back then, it's probably going to be a very hard read.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Gwen's probably going to want to borrow it, too.
That's fine.
A little history buff.
Hey, and you know what's happening in 3 weeks?
Football?
Football.
Hey, same page.
Football. Woo. Yep, I can't wait. Hockey's going on right now. Bruins are kicking ass. Could care less about baseball. Man, 60-game season's a joke. Some of the games are only 7 innings. It's ridiculous. And, yep, hockey's doing good so far. And football's right around the corner.
Yep. I won't be here the next couple shows.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sarah's going to have surgery.
Yeah.
So she won't be here for a couple
Well,
weeks.
you just reminded me because of softball. So that's how it happened. Supposed to
softball. I
slide.
said football.
Well, we were talking about baseball and stuff. So
All right.
it just happened. So thanks for not sliding at home and breaking my nose, bruh.
Randy, I didn't win last season. I finished 3rd last year. Carlos had that one player that just destroyed me.
Oh, were you doing fantasy?
Yeah, we do fantasy at work.
Gotcha.
And I had a friggin' awesome team last year, and I played Carlos, and he had Michael Thomas on his team. And it just so happened to be the game where Michael Thomas went off for like almost 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he almost single-handedly beat me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's first year Randy hasn't won. Randy, you finished 2nd, right? Randy shattered his ankle sliding during softball.
Yeah, I've had many injuries to softball. But the second show I might call in, so depending on what you do.
He went out there. He went out and played softball minus 1 finger.
Well, like Tony Romo couldn't play with his little pinky. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Randy sliced his finger at work, and here he is out there playing softball, finger all bandaged up.
Because that's a man.
Yeah.
See, look, sexual harassment. Because I made a joke like that.
It is. Now, guy came into the bar one time, and they were talking about the heat, and he says, no, it's the relative humidity. Now, do most people know what relative humidity is?
I don't think I know what that is. I think of humidity as outside temperature.
Right, well, there's humidity, there's relative humidity.
Okay, no.
Based on the percentage of the humidity in the air.
Yeah.
So everybody's looking at him funny. He says, what? You don't know what relative humidity is? And they were like, no. And he said, that's when the sweat from your balls runs down the crack of your sister-in-law's ass.
Oh, my Lord.
Now, is that sexual harassment?
100%.
Is that harassment? Or is it, what kind of harassment does that fall under?
Sexual harassment.
Okay. Yeah, Randy did. His batting average went up with that finger up. All right. Well, that is our show for today.
Thanks for...
I was going to say I hope you enjoyed, but it was a tough topic to enjoy.
Yeah.
I hope we made a difference, and I hope everybody stays safe. So, until next week, this is Jim Sakowitz along with Sarah Beer, and I will most likely see you Sarah in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right, guys, be good.
See ya.